Yes, is this Alex?
It is.
Paul Dosey from Tank and Paul's Passing Thoughts. How are you this evening?
I'm good. How are you?
Great. Is it alright if I call you Alex?
Yes, please.
Alrighty. Say, listen, we have never met. Glad to meet you. And I was, as I emailed you and told you, I was doing some research. We're an organization that researches the ancient theology, spiritual abuse in the church. We're kind of a think tank and research organization. And I was doing some research online, and as I told you in the email, and by the way, thanks for agreeing to this interview. I think that your experience with the Steubenville situation can be very informational and educational for us. But I read your article, and by the way, another thing, if I lose ya, if there's a technical problem, I'll call you right back.
Okay.
Um,
I'm hoping that my text messages aren't going off all the time while I'm talking to you, because I still haven't figured out how to turn that off on my new smartphone.
well, I know I can't run them, so I thoroughly understand it. And it
I'm operator, so I feel about it.
yeah, it won't bother us a bit. So anyway, I was reading this article that you posted on something like ExoJane or something like that,
Yeah.
from your blog, and I was just blown away by it. And let me just cut right to the quick here before you get to your story. The elements of the Steubenville story is just point by point of what we see in the church time and time and time and time again. Okay? It's the exact same story, only instead of church, we have, for lack of a better term, big red football. Okay? Perhaps I could say it's the big red football religion versus just church. Okay? And here's the four elements that I see. And again, we see this time and time and time again. It's the same old story. We'll get emails and correspondence from people, and it's like, we read it and we listen to it, but we already know the story.
Right.
Point one, a person who's a major figure in a church or some organization is called into account for something. Two, it's always a minority or an individual that has to keep pushing the issue. Most everybody else just kind of wants it to go away. The victim is blamed, disregarded, disparaged, and discredited. And then fourth, if justice does come, the individual or the abuser is the one who's the victim, and the whistleblower is the bad guy or the bad girl or whatever. This is just the same old song and dance. And before you share your story, and I have a lot of questions about your story, I probably over prepared. Okay? So, anyway, there's some things I want to ask you about the situation. I think there's a lot to learn. But before you get into your story, I have a story of my own. And I'm only going to tell you a little part of it. And basically, another church was involved in the situation I was involved. I went to this other church, and got them involved in the situation. And here's what the pastor of that church said to me. We know what they did to you is wrong, but if you make an issue of it, it will destroy that church. Okay? Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, I mean, they're essentially turning it back on the victim and, encouraging you not to speak about it. And,
Right.
That's the entire premise of, rape culture. We don't talk about it, and victim blaming.
Right.
Shaming you into silence.
Right. And I've got some ideas on that as we go along, but if you would please share your story.
Okay. I used to live in Steubenville many years ago. I lived there for about 5 or 6 years, and after I moved away, which has been, I think, probably 15 years ago, I did what other people do with their old hometown. I kept, up to date on news to see what was happening. And on August 22nd, I was reading on WTOV9.com, which is the local, I think they're NBC affiliate. And they had a small report on 2 football players from Steubenville Big Red had been arrested for rape, kidnapping, and having materials contained, which depicted a nude minor. And the story was very bare bones. As soon as I saw that it involved 2 Steubenville Big Red high school kids, I thought, this is big, because I remember how important and beloved the football team is there. I mean, they love that high school football team. They're very good. They have a good record. And, I was kind of shocked that the news report didn't contain more information. So I went out to the high school's football site and looked through the team roster, started getting names of players, and from there I started looking up social media, their Twitter accounts and Facebook accounts, and all of their Twitter accounts contained their full legal name, so it was easy to identify who was who. And I just started fanning out and reading timelines, and within a couple of hours, I was like, this is disgusting. There's absolutely more to this than what the news reported. They did not report that other teams were tweeting and retweeting the lascivious bravado of these boys who were bragging about a girl being raped. And, some of the admissions that were being made on Twitter, the photograph, that there was a video that had been posted. So, I just started screen grabbing and saving all of this stuff. And that night, I stayed up all night long. I think I went to bed around 1 or 2 the next day after grabbing all this stuff. And I put a blog up about the town and, the football culture and just, a little backstory to, not the rape, but, this little town in the Ohio Valley that I used to live in.
Now, did you post something, or did you actually create a blog site for this?
I have a blog site. I've been writing about true crime cases for probably about 10 years.
Ah.
And, when I saw this one, because it was my old hometown, I did collect screenshots of everything that I could grab. And, the first blog article that I wrote, I didn't include those screenshots. In fact, that next day, my former best friend, who has disavowed our friendship because of this case, her husband is the chief BCI agent on that case. So I called her and said, I've got all of this stuff that I found online, and, I'm willing to hand it over to Eddie if they don't have it. I didn't know what the police may or may not have had. So I was going to give them, a courtesy call, the heads up that it's out there online. I've got it. Other people are going to see it. Do you want me to turn it over? And I never heard back from her husband, so I assumed that they had everything. And at that point, I think it was like a day and a half later that I wrote the second blog article, and I started posting screenshots of the tweets, and that is when the people were just livid. They were angry. I mean, the whole town was talking about this case, and trying to dissect rumor from fact. But when you actually see a screenshot of what these kids were posting online, that is when people really, really became angry.
Right. And I read through your article, and to kind of reiterate what you said, after you had heard about it, you went to the actual football website and got information on the players, and then started perusing their social webs, their Twitter accounts, so on and so forth.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, and you've been pretty well on top of this. Is it your feeling or assertion that had you not posted this on the internet, that what you had found would have kind of gone away?
It did go away after I posted it. They started deleting everything, but I wrote about this because I felt local media wasn't providing the information that the public was looking for. And
Well, now,
I ended up being sued for defamation of character during my coverage of this case.
right, and that's one of the points that I forgot to mention in our church cases. As far as the whistleblower, persecution of the whistleblower being one of the elements, yes, people who blow the whistle on these abuses in churches and stuff. Julianne Smith, if you've ever heard of her, and others have been sued for the blogs that they have put up. All right, and Julianne Smith won her lawsuit that was brought against her. A $500,000 lawsuit was brought against her by a church in Oregon. And the other case that's going on right now, I believe in California, where a Christian blogger is being sued. I don't know how that case is going. I haven't heard back on it. But again, same old song and dance, just identical elements, only a 10,000 seat stadium, Friday night lights versus church. Okay. Now, as far as you posting all of this stuff on the blog, and as one person put it, you complicated the situation. Okay. As far as that, now, as I said, I probably over-prepared, but I saw a interview with the Ohio Attorney General in which he said, quote, social media was a bad thing and was only hurting the case. It sounds like, if not for your blog, a lot of these details wouldn't even be out there.
Well, and, had my blog not riled up the masses and anonymous got involved, I don't believe that there would be a grand jury who is in session doing additional investigation of this case.
Yes.
If it was done correctly from the beginning, there would be no need for the grand jury to intervene.
And
as far as social media is complicating this, my thought is these kids, these teens, should not have put out their time on the internet for the entire world to see. Just because I happen to come across it, that's where the blame lies. I didn't post that, I knew about the rape of a young girl.
And this is one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you. This is absolutely huge, because this whole issue of reporting is the big bugaboo in the church cases. Okay? And that is really what has drawn me to the Steubenville issue. Is now, wow, now there's a grand jury convening because it looks like parents, maybe even coaches, knew about it and didn't report it.
Correct. And that mandatory reporting law across the board in every state in our nation is very specific. It doesn't have to be, there was abuse of a child, the suspicion of abuse is what forces a mandatory reporter to make that phone call.
Okay, and I'm very privy to that because my lovely wife Susan is in education, and you know, she works with disabled children with the government, and so we're very aware that the reporting, you know, the laws that you have to report are very strict, and with the church cases, this is huge because the confidentiality between, you know, pastor and priest and the parishioner kind of muddies the waters a little bit. But at any rate, let me, if I could, ask some clarifying questions on the whole incident, because I did a lot of reading on this, okay? And tell me, what's this about the rape crew?
There has been some disparity among what that is. There are some that say that the rape crew is slang for working hard, and then there was others who say that the rape crew is for because this was not the first time that they had engaged in this sort of behavior.
Yes, and that's what I wanted to ask you about. There seems to be an indication that there was a prior incident at another party like this. Is anybody investigating that?
That incident happened in last April, and the mother did not know that her daughter had been assaulted, and she was actually contacted by people who were researching this Steubenville case, who we were able to figure out who the victim was, contact the mother, and she went to the police. The Attorney General's office says that BCI and their office have this case and that it's part of the grand jury investigation. But other than that, there has been no public updates from the AG's office or anything of that sort. So, you know, hopefully if the grand jury has this as part of their investigation, you know, they'll hand down indictments for those who were involved in it.
And I think maybe we can count on you to pursue it if they don't.
Yeah.
We'll try to get you in some more trouble.
Yeah.
And
that seems to be my middle name these days.
right. And now, a couple things still here. And boy, you know, I've read a lot of information on this. It is depressing. But as a matter of fact, and I even hate to ask it, but was the girl urinated on?
There is trial testimony from one of the female teenage witnesses who said that, you know, she saw photos that she was. There was allegations that someone suggested they urinate on her. So, again, that is yet another thing within this entire case that, you know, there's one person that's saying one thing and another saying something else.
But
so,
it was.
You know, I don't know.
It wasn't. Wasn't it?
Through the transcript.
Yeah. wasn't that alluded to in a tweet though?
Yes,
Okay.
it was.
Which, who knows, okay?
Well, where there's smoke, there's usually fire.
Now, question. And I'm just going to throw this out there. There's a case like this in Tennessee going on, okay? Those boys are being tried as adults, okay? I think perhaps even, it's almost as if these boys were brought to trial grudgingly, okay? And, why weren't they tried as adults? This is rape, it's kidnapping, and let me tell you something, I forget who the guy was. He was, I think, a famous rock star. He downloaded some porn on his computer, and man, he got 10 years or something. This is serious stuff, but yet they weren't tried as adults. What do you make of that?
I don't know what to make of it. They were requested to be tried as adults by the original prosecutor, and apparently 50 individuals and businesses in Stevensville wrote letters of support for Trent Mays, and I believe they also did psychological evaluations on them, and they didn't have any prior criminal history, so the judge decided at that point that he would keep them bound over in the juvenile court system.
And, what happened to this young lady is certainly a tragedy, but the punishment that's been meted out is not, for them, wouldn't be a cakewalk, would it?
Well, rape victims get a life sentence. That's something that they have to deal with for the rest of their lives. And,
yes.
People were upset at the amount of time that Malik and Trent got. But I think that it's based on like a minimum of that amount of time, depending on how they do in the sexual assault rehab program that they have to participate in.
Right. Well, it certainly sends a strong message in these, and of course we all know about the primetime TV show, Friday Night Lights, that glorifies these big high school football programs. I think it does send the message that because you're a high school football star and the man about, small town USA, that this isn't going to fly. So an immense service has been done to, community at large. And you paid a significant personal price for the stand that you took.
Yeah. Yeah, I have.
And again, likewise in the church, people pay huge prices to stand up to these things. Okay. Another question I was going to ask you. It kind of slipped my mind a little bit. Oh mercy. Theory. Okay. And I want to, before we end, I want to learn a little bit more about your blog, about this. I looked at it a little bit. This wonderful website information source that you have. I believe to where you is this your website where you educate parents on how to keep on top of their children's social media?
Yeah.
Okay, well I want my readers to be privy to that website and the address and a little bit about that service. Now, looking through my notes here, it seems I haven't got a lot of this figured out, but it seems in these situations that elitism somehow leads to this mentality that there's an entitlement over other people's lives. Okay? And, you know, this elitism is usually tied to something big that's community, whether it's entertainment or church. There's a gig, okay? And in Steubenville, the gig was, you know, the Friday Night Lights, the all the drama of the 10,000 seat stadium, and this, that, and the other. Here's the point I want to make. This young lady was expendable for the sake of that program, to protect the reputation of that program.
Well, I can tell you that when I appeared on the Dr. Phil show, they had two Steubenville Big Red football players on there who were not at the parties but were friends with the kids involved. And one of them actually sat there and said, yeah, I play football for Big Red, so I'm a hometown celebrity. And going through the tweets that night, you know, in the days that followed the assault, these kids were talking about Steubenville Stars for Life. I mean, they do believe that they're stars. And, you know, they don't get that way by themselves. They just don't decide, I'm playing high school football and I'm a superstar. That's coming from the adults in the community who are treating them as if they're better than, say someone on the band or in the book club.
Right, and it seems, the fundamental philosophy seems to be that the few are expendable for the group. And, one young lady, one person isn't worth messing up everybody's good time on a Friday night.
Well, that's absolutely, the opinion of many people in that town. And, they voiced it on my blog, and we got sued.
Right. So, basically, any word of how the victim is doing? Is she doing all right now, or does anybody know?
Yeah, she's, I guess, maintained honor roll status, and she plays soccer and continued to play soccer, and I do chat every now and then with her best friend, who tells me that she's doing well.
Great.
So, she's a strong girl. It's good that she was able to go back to school, and she did what a lot of people can't do. She stood up to face them.
Right, and what kind of message does this send overall? And again, you have provided an immense community service to humanity, at least in our culture. And let me ask you something. Should this not send a strong message to young ladies across the board and make them think twice, 3 times, and 4 times about the young men that they're associating with and the whole elitist atmosphere of these football programs?
Well, I don't think that, as a woman, I should never have to worry about whether I go out and someone is going to rape me.
Mm-hmm.
This is a message to parents that they need to teach their male children that you don't rape, and that no means no, and if someone is not able to communicate with you, that's not permission to violate her.
Right. And again, this is all the same process over and over and over again the victim's at fault, the victim's blamed, and it's, another question is, and I don't, I read about your background and stuff. Let me get your opinion on this, because I have my own from observation. Do you think getting justice is part of a healing process?
I think so. I mean, but I guess that's a personal opinion, whether somebody finds that will, allow them to heal. I think that, each individual is going to deal with it differently, but, certainly justice has a part in the overall healing process.
What's it say if there is no justice? What does that say about, really what does that say? I don't know how much it does for the healing of the victim, but I think it says that definitely sends a horrible multiplicity of messages to the rest of culture, and especially our young people, no?
Well, yeah, if there is no justice, that's almost, like giving a silent permission that behavior is okay.
Right, which they already kind of had that idea anyway. And,
Right.
Again, my theory is that this entitlement mentality over other people comes part and parcel with this elitist aurora in culture. And so, anyway, moving on here, looking through my notes here, before you tell me and my readers a little bit about your blog, and especially this service that you have for parents, would you make some comments on the information age and this whole dynamic of the blogosphere now, where the individual is empowered? What kind of impact do you think that's having on our society?
After being sued for defamation of character, and having to stand up for my right to express speech as I wish, and the right of my anonymous commenters to remain anonymous and express their opinion, I think that the blogosphere is very important because it is offering a platform, even if it is an anonymous blogger, it's offering a platform to discuss controversial items that people generally wouldn't want to do for fear of retribution from their community or whoever they were writing about.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think it's very important, and it is empowering people to become socially active, and to be activists, because change doesn't happen by sitting on your couch. It happens by somebody having the guts to stand up and say, this is wrong, and, I demand that you acknowledge this issue.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think it's very important.
And I hereby proclaim you and I journalists, whether anybody else will or not. It's official. We don't care what they say. So anyway, please, if you would, before we close out here, and I thank you again so much for being with us today. This will be posted either tomorrow night in the morning, along with the link to the guest post on XO Jane, I believe, something like that. And also, I'm going to post the CNN video of the CNN report, CNN or whatever it is, the rather shocking report by them, and exhibiting the woes of how terrible it was for these young boys and the punishment that they had to pay. I'm going to post that as long as with our interview. Tell us a little bit about your blog, and then, but primarily the address and the service that you're offering parents as a way to stay on top of their children's social media.
Okay. My blog is called Prinnie5.com. That's PRINNIESIED.com. I hate the name. I'm stuck with it now, apparently.
Okay.
But that is my con blog. I haven't been writing a lot lately because I've been very busy. But all of the Stevensville articles are grouped up at the top under a tab so that people can find them. The other, my business site is called CreepYourKids.com.
Okay.
And, there are so many parents who, they don't understand Twitter. They don't understand, how to do Facebook. They think they're going to blow the computer up if they start doing something. And, these kids are connected to social media 24 hours a day. Most cell phones come with Twitter already pre-installed. All they have to do is sign up for an account, and their stuff is on the internet. And, as we know, children do not have a social off switch. They haven't learned that yet, and will post, inappropriate things online. We'll post, scheduling stuff. I'm going to cheerleader practice at 4 o'clock at such and such high school. Well, they don't understand that, their friends are not the only ones reading this. There are dangerous people online who prey on children. So I offer a service that we will go in and review their child. They don't have to know their child's Twitter name, but if they do, that's always a plus. And we look at 5 of their friends and do a comprehensive social profile to see, are they doing things that mom and dad don't know about? Are the friends doing things that are inappropriate? Are there security risks and safety risks that are happening, with their kids in their accounts? And we also have developed a seminar, a training seminar that we, take to schools, city halls, town meetings, churches, that actually will teach parents how to utilize research tools online to do, to monitor their child's social media themselves. The Creep Your Kids offers, we will do it for you, and the seminar will, we actually go in and teach parents and educators how to keep on top of their children's social media presence online.
Got it. And I will have those links on the blog. And again, Alex, thank you so much for giving us, as my grandmother used to say, giving us this learning today. And thank you so much for being brave and taking a stand. You're an inspiration to all of us. A wonderful example. It's tough to stand alone. I've had to do it, and but woe unto us if people won't take a stand and for these things and for the victims. God bless you. And thank you so much for being with us today, and I hope to talk to you again real soon.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for having me.
All righty. Good evening to you.
Here.
Bye-bye.
All righty. Bye.